Welcome to the Way of the Lotus. My name is Leni, Leth.
And I'm Dr. Mary Contreras. The news on TV, in newspapers, and online can sure be overwhelming. And if you're like me, you can feel like there's nothing you can do. And wow, this can take me to a very sad place. But I know that isn't the truth. There are ways in which I can change my world each and every day.
And if you're like me, I love Louis Armstrong's It's a Wonderful World, and I'd like to believe that it truly is. And our mission is to inspire and uplift, so at the end of the podcast, you will want to go out and do extraordinary things with your life that will not only benefit you, but mankind and the world as well.
In life, even during the most difficult and challenging times, we can discover important aspects about ourselves and others. We will be sharing inspirational and uplifting stories of ordinary people who have done extraordinary things with their lives.
The reason that we chose the name The Way of the Lotus is that the lotus represents purity, spirituality, and rebirth.
We believe the world is filled with love and compassion. How you get there is another story. We will be listening to those inspiring stories together and hopefully expanding our awareness and opinions about ourselves and the world. Our time today will be spent talking with Karen Cebreros. And Karen, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you both for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Well, so tell us about your journey in your life. And I think there's something that happened to you when you were in your late 30s.
Well, I'd be delighted. Thank you. It's a crazy story. It's hard to believe, but with the grace of God, I'm here to tell you. In '89, I was diagnosed with cardiomyopathy. Heart had doubled in size.
Wow.
Never did get to the conclusion of why, but in any event, they said, get your affairs in order. And one of the possibilities was I had been to Brazil with a family vacation, and they called it the Coxsackie virus. Another was I had given birth. I had a 1-year-old, and who knows what else. But I'll dive right into why does a cardiomyopathy lead to organic coffee?
Yeah, because we know you're very involved with women and coffee and that production. So yeah, we really want to hear about that. But boy, I am blown away by the heart situation. Wow.
So did you get a heart transplant?
No, they told me I couldn't go more than 30 miles away from San Diego because I had to be ready when the heart came through.
Oh, wow.
And I had a brother-in-law at that time. He was living in Peru in the Andes in a very remote village. And I was sharing the story with him, and he said, why don't you get some other opinions? Because I saw 7 cardiologists in California and in Arizona. And in those days, you can imagine, x-rays were like this. You hauled them around doctor to doctor. Every single one said, I agree with your original doctor's diagnosis. He said, just come to Peru and I'll introduce you to other types of people who will have different opinions. And you have nothing to lose. Get somebody to watch the kids. My husband was a teacher, which I did. And then I did see curanderos and all kinds of things that I'd never been exposed to. The person I saw,
as an alternative type of medicine.
Eastern philosophies, different philosophies. So this is where it sounds just crazy, but he took me to see a shaman who was so famous in South America. We waited 8 hours in a hotel in Miraflores, the Beverly Hills of Peru. And he came in with his entourage and his bodyguards, and I ran up to him, and he goes, and the bodyguards, protect him, and he says, you will have your turn. We will send for you. I will be up in a suite and you'll be called shortly. And so I'm anxious to see him. I tell him pretty much what I just shared with you. And he said, so you think you're going to die? You're not. Not only are you not going to die, you're going to participate in a career that will lead you to have something to do with women and children. And you won't, I remember like it's yesterday, you won't be famous like a movie star or a sports figure, but you will do something that will make a difference in the world. Do not do any dramatic Western medical therapies.
What? He actually said, do not do that.
Do not do that. You know, you've got to find your purpose. You've got to be happy. You got to get rid of stress and get up every day and believe in God.
And that was it.
Yep.
He didn't do any.
No. So I went on to go up into the Andes, the eastern slopes of the Andes. In those days, you had to take a bus for 16 hours. You had to fly from Lima to northern Peru and then get a bus and ride 16 hours. And of course, we went through towns where there were lots of curanderos, and they all shared nutty remedies, you know, teas and herbs and deer feet, you know. But when we got there, what happened is there wasn't even a road all the way there. You had to go across a bridge.
A rope bridge.
But when we got there, he was living among all these incredibly different types of thinking and spirituality. But everybody I met in these regions said, you're not going to die. I don't know why they said that, but it just gives you hope. In the meantime, no electricity, no running water, but the people were so kind. And my brother-in-law said, I just want to help them. What can we do? His profession was forest fire fighting, but he just said these people are there wasn't a bit of trash anywhere. He introduces me to a woman in her 20s. She has 7 children, and I'll never forget, she says, can you take one of my children back with you to the United States? Just give somebody in my family a chance.
Yes.
But he's saying, how can we help them? What can we do? And I said, I haven't got the slightest idea. I thought poverty was Tijuana. No, this is legitimate poverty where there's nothing.
May I interject? I am so curious to know, how did you find, as a Westerner, the courage to turn your back on Western medicine with such a serious diagnosis? Where did that courage come from?
I felt like I didn't have a choice, but I did feel like I didn't want a heart transplant. I just didn't want it, you know. I think most people, when they do have that type of dramatic surgeries, they absolutely do or they don't. I mean, you know, you've met people who refuse to have chemotherapy, but they survive, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It's that kind of thinking.
So where did the trust in this man come from? You must have trusted him and his advice.
Okay, that's a good question. After my brother-in-law said, how can we help these people? And I said, well, maybe we could sell something. What do they do here? He said they grow coffee and they grow coca leaves. 2 different farms, coffee during the day, coca at night. Well, so I go home, and then a friend of mine suggested one more doctor to see at the City of Hope, which isn't easy to get into. You don't just pick up the phone and make an appointment with the City of Hope in Los Angeles. I go to see that guy. He's Iranian. He repeats the exact same thing.
As a shaman?
No, he's a doctor at the City of Hope. An Iranian doctor, Dr. Bahram, I forget his last name, and he said, you don't have to die. You can make a decision not to die. I mean, it was just the same thing.
It doesn't surprise
Oh
me
my
that
God.
he's from Iran. Yeah.
And he looked at the thing and he goes, get rid of these x-rays. Just get rid of them. You don't need them. You're not going to die. Go home and find your purpose in God.
Wow.
And so, I mean, I launched into every conceivable self-help care you can imagine, from hypnosis to, diet and exercise, and you change all those things around. And time started to pass by, and while I was doing that, I was, I get home from there, and to answer, this is a wacky thing too. There's these series of family-owned lumber companies in San Diego called Dixieline Lumber.
Yeah.
And it's owned by the Cowell family. William Cowell III had opened a place in Solana Beach, and I had quit Xerox after 11 years, where I was very successful, but I was sick of it, and opened my own company, which morphed into janitorial. That wasn't the intention. It was supposed to be lawn time savers, where we did executive errands. I was telling him the same story I'm telling you, William III in Solana Beach, and he says, I'm going to introduce you to somebody that's going to change your life. So I meet the head of the TM Center. I didn't meditate. And he introduces me to a lady from New York, and she's Jewish with that kind of voice. Hi, honey. Okay, you're going to come to the TM Center. This lady did change my life. I sold my company. I got divorced. I took up meditation like a zealot. And between all the different things that were coming to me or that I was attracting, I found the courage. I found my people. I found my stability. Get rid of the stress. Get rid of the business. Get rid of the marriage that wasn't working.
Okay. Everything that doesn't work. Yeah.
And then I found Reverend Kathy Hearn, who ran a Unitarian church, and she was right there with Terry Cole Whitaker and Marianne Williamson. She was in that movement, and she was in San Diego. And that when I went to that church, there were 10 people there. When she left, we had over 1,000 members, and we used to meet in Liberty Station. But in the meantime, I started researching this thing about the coffee. Well, maybe we could do something with the coffee. There was no specialty coffee association yet. There was just Folgers, Nestle's, Hill's Brother, Maxwell House, that sort of thing. But I had a friend, and he said, I'll do the research, and that's what he did. He was a research guy. And he said, something's going to blow up here. There's something happening with coffee. Well, that was the summer of '89 when I got diagnosed. That's the summer that Starbucks went public.
Oh my god.
And we actually were the second city in San Diego to get Starbucks after Seattle. So that was a weird thing. So we went there, we tasted it, and there was only a couple roasters in San Diego, and they were horrible, little guys. And we said, boy, if these guys can make it, we can figure this out. So we just got on a path, and somebody heard about me. There was nobody to talk to. Martin Dietrich had Dietrich's coffees. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes.
I drove up to Orange County to see him, and then I found a guy named Tim Castle in LA. I drove up to see him, and his assistant, this woman, Melissa Pugash. Well, I told Tim, he says there's going to be a specialty coffee show in Oakland, California at the Claremont Hotel. If you work my booth, I'll get you in. So it was the second time there was a meeting. 10 men and a woman started in '89, and then I went to the second show. There were 5 booths, and I was one of them. And we said, a guy walks up and says, can you get me organic coffee out of Peru? What is that? No pesticides, no herbicides, clean water, clean soil, clean air, and absolutely pure. Oh, these people are so poor they couldn't buy pesticide if they wanted it. I said, okay, how do I get it certified? I have no idea. So I went on that journey to figure that out. And the first lady I get says, honey, I'm milking cows. I can't talk to you right now.
Milking cows.
And the next guy I called in Canada said, you got me off a tractor. I'm doing broccoli to ask me where I get a certifier for. He goes, I'll call you back, but don't call people when they're in the middle of the day farming. I found a guy named Tom Harding who said he would go to Peru. And that journey began, and we became the first certified coffees. And when I shipped my first container, I knew nothing, but when I worked at Xerox, I shipped containers of paper because I was a supply manager for Xerox from Brazil to the US. So I kind of had a little feeling for it, but you just figured it out.
But isn't that wonderful, the connections? When you think about, your prior career and what you were learning, and okay, you were fed up with that, but if you hadn't had that,
I wouldn't have been able.
You wouldn't have been able to do the next piece that you were doing. No. And then also with the shaman and that voice and that message to you, and then the things that happened when you came back to San Diego.
It's called the law of attraction at its finest.
Oh my God.
Well, everything... we battled, and the coffee, we were so worried about it. We got it to the wrong coast, Florida. I didn't know you had to designate Oakland. We had to rail it across the U.S. Oh. It was Christmas time. We lost the damn container in Texas because they closed for the holidays. But we had to get it there because we were going to throw a Christmas party and celebrate my husband's birthday at the Horton Grand Hotel downtown. And we had people from all over the place coming in, and we had landed it, and we got approval from our buyer in San Francisco, and there were only 3 buyers at the time. 3. And in those days, roasters were only on the coasts because there were no roasters in the U.S. There were 30 roasters in America. Today, there's 200 roasters in San Diego.
Oh my gosh!
So coffee had become a giant thing.
And continues to be a giant thing, isn't it?
Craft everything is a giant thing. Craft beer, craft wine, everything.
Yes,
true. Any homemade bread. Look what happened during COVID. Everybody knows how to make sourdough bread.
Yes.
So we landed that container. We got paid the day of the party because we could have never paid for the party. And we've just been on that track ever since. So organic was catching on. This is the real beginning of how I ended up selling coffee for 35 years. The guy who said to me, can you find organic coffee in Peru? I called him after a year and a half. I said, it's here. Royal's selling it out of Oakland, and he lived in Colorado. And he goes, okay, good, I'll take 5 bags. it never occurred to him that he wasn't going to take the whole container of 250 bags. 5 bags? And he goes, yeah, I'm a little roaster. I'm a little tiny robot, 12 or 5 kilo, something stupid little. I don't know what to ask, so I call Royal and I say, this container, and they go, well, you better get on the phone. Well, how do you know who to call? Better get Yellow Pages. That's all there was. There was only Yellow Pages. I had to call everyone I knew around the United States.
And you're still back in 1989?
By now we're in 91.
Oh, in 91, okay.
And because it took over a year to figure out how to certify it. And then when we got it certified, and we went to the first Organic Crop Improvement Association meeting, which was in Mazatlan, and my brother-in-law is Mexican, Cebreros. It's all gringos from Canada and the U.S. having a meeting in Mexico so they can party in Zihuatanejo, and we walk up and they go, you're not welcome here. Just like that. And I go, excuse me? And I said, I submitted my paperwork, a couple months ago. We need to know when you're going to read it and approve it and what to do. They go, you can't be in it. You're not a farmer, me. And they made the biggest racist slur you can imagine, and Mexicans don't have the ability to certify anything. It's for Canada and the U.S. You can imagine the battles that followed that. But
How to do all of that costs money. So how did you support
that's a good question. I put a mortgage on my house, and I spent every Xerox dime I had in savings and profit. All my IRA, everything. I cashed out everything.
That begs the question, have you made it back?
Millions of dollars. Yeah, but I spent it all.
That's what it's for.
When I sold my company, that's how I ended up in Gaviotas. I used to own a house right up the street.
So, how did women come into this focus with the coffee world?
Good question. So, everything was beginning at the same time. Fair trade. Certified organic, Coffee Kids, all the NGOs, Grounds for Health that goes out and saves women's lives. Women farmers have more cervical cancer than any women in the world because of the migratory men coming through. Anyway, that thing is booming now, cervical cancer. I never even knew about cervical cancer. All you have to do is get a shot. It's a virus. So everything was growing at the same time, but I wasn't seeing anything changing in the farmers' lives at all. I was so frustrated that I said, what if we just took a group of women on tour? Forget the guys. Because by now it was 2003, our first trip. In fact, we just had our 20-year anniversary in Ethiopia in October of 2023. So I said, what if I just took women? Maybe they'd see things differently. So we took every person from the supply chain, from roasters, buyers, baristas, curriculum writers for Caribou Coffee, all these different women, 17 of us. And when I got them and I hired a woman, Java Ventures, and she was going to take us to Nicaragua first, right, poor like Haiti, and then just not as many gang wars, but poor. And then we were going to go to Costa Rica to see the estates and where it's really happening. And there was only one woman in coffee before me. When you said it's a man's world, Erna Knudsen, she went along. She was 86. She always lied about her age. She kept telling us she was like 79. I said, we have your passport, Erna. But when we pulled into Nicaragua and Jinotega, and there were 0 men because they were all at war or in the U.S. working. All women running all the coffee farms, women and children. They had wanted to build a building for us, about this big, but they hadn't finished. No roof, no windows, no doors, facade. And they had
a tiny little space.
Tiny little school with little bitty skinny benches. They had a chalkboard over here. No chalk. No teachers. And that's where we met, in this roofless little space. And the girls right then, before we actually stepped off the bus, passed a hat and created $500 that put the roof on the place. And to this day, Cup of Education, which was born from that trip, still supports the women in the village and the teachers. But we saw, when we left Nicaragua to go over to Costa Rica, they had made a special party. There's nowhere to hold it, so it was in a coffee warehouse. And they were translating. We had actually there was somebody from an NGO in Germany trying to help them out. And they made this big banner for Erna, who was 86. And everybody, what they said to us and what got translated to us was, we just want to do business like you do. We just want to have the respect and the ability to do business and take care of our children and be healthy and send them to school. And the whole warehouse was full of sobbing women.
Oh.
Anyway, Women in Coffee, which the real name is International Women's Coffee Alliance, IWCA, was born. So we just celebrated the 20 years in Ethiopia. Big conference.
Ethiopia.
Yeah. Well, it took an act of God to jump continents. In fact, a friend of mine, a brilliant Mary type, just became the executive director. She's in Guatemala, and finally we'll get a person to be in charge of the liaison between all the chapters, and she'll have a person like that for Latin America, Brazil, and Africa, and Indonesia. Thank God.
Oh my God, and look at what you've created.
Yeah, it's something.
And thinking back to that, you were given the diagnosis of that you had a year, I think you said to us.
That is criminal.
And look at where you're at.
You know, in Britain, it's against the law now to give diagnoses like that. Doctors are not allowed to say you have X amount of time to live.
I noticed even here, people are reluctant to say anything like that.
They should be.
And anybody who isn't the doctor, all the technicians who, I just got a remarkable echocardio last month, because I had let myself go, and ejection fractions 50 to 70, and I ran around 50 my whole life. Then I couldn't breathe, so I went in a year ago and it had dropped to 35. It's getting scary.
Yes.
And I was just always tired. I just didn't want to do anything. I don't know. So I changed again, completely revolutionized my lifestyle like I did the first time. And I just found out it's back up to 40. It jumped 5 percentage points in 1 year.
Talk to us about you. How do you revolutionize your lifestyle? What did you do different?
I stopped driving back and forth to Mexico once a week. I settled down and just focused on my grandkids, the reason I went there in the first place. So no drinking, 1 glass for a wedding. So no drinking, no red meat, aqua aerobics 5 times a week, yoga at least twice a week, meditation classes.
It shows.
Yeah,
It
does.
absolutely shows.
I wish people could see you, Karen, because you have a glow about you. You just seem like somebody who is just so centered and so at peace with who they are. You know how you can really tell that with people, and I can really see that in you.
It's a calmness.
Yes.
I don't know why, because my personality is very hyper. I've probably moved 25 times in my lifetime. I can't be still. I always have to do something. Hence, the coffee shop next door to the salon, where we started to raise money for Mujeres para Mujeres.
Yeah.
And we raised a lot of money over the course
So
of
what
that.
are you most proud of in your life right now?
Probably the Women in Coffee Alliance, because that gives a support network, and everybody can call anybody to find out what they need. And we finally wrote a microfinance manual, and it's very basic. And we just translated it to French. A roaster just paid for French. We have it in Spanish, English, and French, and I just got a commitment from Rotary International to pay for Portuguese. So during COVID, the teachers, they were from Guatemala, Panama, Washington, D.C., the people who wrote it, we did an 8-week course, our first on Zoom, and first it was early in COVID. I think it was 2020. We put an 8-week course together. 12 countries participated in Spanish, and we said you have to have a minimum of 2 people. One of them has to be a numbers woman. Every woman attended every single class, even the week of Christmas.
Wow.
That's what I'm most proud of.
That is, you should be. That's amazing.
So,
And I just want to end with, what do you feel at this time in your life is your purpose, and what would you like to accomplish from here on out?
that's a good question. More microfinance. Ultimately, if I had my say, I'd want to do a binational microfinance program, both sides of the border, and just tell the world there's something going on besides the wall between the United States and Mexico. It's not all drugs and murders.
Right. Yeah, thank you for that.
I have a question. The doctor from Iran told you to decide to live. So my question to you is, how long do you want to live?
94.
94? All right. And one
If
more,
I have my brains.
it's not an if, you have it.
Yeah, you have.
That's a decision also, just like I choose to live. What would you tell a young woman who is sitting and want to do something great with their lives but are a little bit afraid to do so? Do you have any advice that you can offer?
Get the best, smartest people around you. Get the best mentor. Get the best coach. Go for it. Ask for help. There's tons of help now. I mean, when I started in business, I didn't even know. I was, Howard Schultz, the founder of taking Starbucks globally, he went, so they say in his book, to 160 different funders before he found his money. And I went to every bank in San Diego, and they said, you're never going to make it. You're never going to get anywhere. What I didn't know in that time frame was that women couldn't even get loans on their own without a male signature.
How antiquated.
Yes.
How antiquated.
So I learned that from National Association of Women Business Owners once I joined it. And then I joined Women in Business. And without Women in Business, I wouldn't have survived because they held me up. And no one knew anything about organic or coffee, and no bank in San Diego was doing the lines. So I used lines of credit my entire career off the backs of other brokerages. Some were good guys and some were really bad guys.
But it sounds like the women in your life
Held me up.
And held you
And
up.
I'm still friends with them today. In fact, we have a dinner once a quarter where our past presidents, you partner up and you get together and you make a dinner. And mine is coming up June 8th. I have to make dinner and bring some Mexican wine.
I just want to ask, what is it about you? What character strength do you possess that made you succeed in the way that you have?
I would say it was I had nothing to lose.
So like burning the ship behind you like Caesar did.
Well,
to win his
as
battle.
somebody who knows you a little bit, Karen,
You do.
I would say that it's also your determination and persistence.
Resilience.
And ADHD.
Karen, thank you so much for
Thanks,
spending
ladies.
time with us
Appreciate
today.
it. It was
We
a pleasure.
appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah, it has been lovely. Thank you. What an inspiration.